Thank you very much for coming here today to listen to our expose of the Commonwealth report on the Pakistan general election of the 8th of February 2024. I will speak partly in English and then towards the end we will make our observations in Urdu because some friends from the international media are here. And it's important that what happened in Pakistan and which has now been affirmed by an international body of high standing should reach across the globe. This was a wholesale attack on the election that was held on the 8th of February 2024. And what we have always known since the evening of the 8th of February, those of us on the ground who contested the election, who observed the election here in Pakistan, knew that the election had been completely subverted. The will of the people of Pakistan had been completely subverted, and a fake system had been created on the basis of rigged results. Now, that fact has been affirmed by this report that I have in my hands here. This is the report compiled by the Commonwealth Observer Group that visited Pakistan during and soon after the election of February 2024. Now, we will make some comments about the delay in its publication. This report has still not been officially published, though it has been leaked, and the Commonwealth Secretariat has accepted the validity of this report. All they've said is that they will be releasing it in a few days' time, along with some other documents. So there is no dispute as regards the veracity, the correctness of this report. This is the report of the observer group set up by the Commonwealth. Now, this report has an executive summary at the outset, about 4 or 5 pages. I would urge everyone, each one of you, to please read those 5 pages. They present in a crux the assault that was carried out on the election of the 8th of February 2024. So, for instance, here in the executive summary, they describe the legal environment in the days and weeks leading up to the election. You will all recall that the PTI was denied its election symbol, the bat, which had been PTI's election symbol for decades. That was taken away on the last day, the 13th of January 2024, which was the last day for the issuance of election symbols. And in a country like Pakistan with low literacy, taking away the election symbol of a party is to, in effect, negate the existence of that party. And that is exactly what was done on the last day for the issuance of election symbols. This report duly notes that. This report also duly notes the fact that before the 8th of February 2024, the polling day, Mr. Imran Khan was awarded through ludicrous judicial proceedings that lasted 14 hours a day from 9 a.m. in the morning till 1 a.m. the next day in the night. He was awarded 3 convictions and sentences, the clear intent being to disillusion and dishearten the PTI voter. This report also points out that Mr. Nawaz Sharif, the head of the PMLN, was granted reprieve in extraordinary circumstances. Convictions against him were set aside. The lifetime ban on him participating in the electoral process was lifted. All of this was happening in parallel. So while one party was being attacked, was being targeted, the other party and its leadership was being facilitated in every manner possible. So the report brings that out as the background to the election that was held on the 8th of February 2024. But despite all this, on the 8th of February, the Pakistani nation roared back. It came out in numbers that nobody had expected to vote for the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf or the candidates put up by the PTI who were wrongly described as independent candidates. They were, for every legal purpose, candidates of the PTI, and yet they were given the label of independent candidates. And that is why, even after all the rigging that happened, which is then described in great detail in this report, the PTI backed independents emerged as the single largest party in parliament. 93 MNAs, members of the National Assembly, were clearly PTI backed or the alliance that the PTI had entered into with the Sunni Ittihad Council. They were backed by these parties, the combined. And obviously, the vote was that of Mr. Imran Khan, the PTI. So 93 candidates declared their affiliation to the PTI soon after being elected as independent candidates. That is also brought out. But the fact that the total number of the PTI backed candidates should have been not 193 but 193 or thereabouts is brought out in several passages, several portions of this report. And I would draw your attention, everybody's attention in particular, to page 94 of this report. At page 94, there are two paragraphs with different headings. One of the paragraphs is headed Irregular Vote Totals on Form 45, and the next paragraph is titled Irregular Voter Turnout. I invite you all, I invite the Pakistani nation and everybody around the world who cares for democracy and who cares for stability in Pakistan to read this report very carefully, but in particular, this page 94. What is it saying? What this page 94 brings out is two features of this rigged election that stare us in the face. The record that the Election Commission finally accepted as the record of the election, and which it put up on its website that anybody could have accessed till a couple of days ago. Now they might have taken it down after this report. But this is there for all to see at the Election Commission website. So what do you see there? You see for about 100 constituencies the following facts. The Forms 45 for every constituency, these 100 or so constituencies, show the votes polled at every polling station within a constituency by the competing candidates. So that is what the Form 45 is. It is a count of the vote polled by every candidate or each candidate at each polling station within a constituency. So what the report points out is that there are clear discrepancies in the manner in which this vote count has been compiled. So you can see clearly the overwriting, the cutting, and even where the overwriting and the cutting has been done somewhat well, a 1 has been turned into a 900. What has happened there is that the Form 45 and the Form 46 have become inconsistent. Now, what is the Form 46? The Form 46 is the form that records the total number of ballots used up at a polling station. So normally, in a fair election, the aggregate vote count displayed by the Form 45 should be equal to the number of ballot papers used at a particular polling station. There can be a slight discrepancy of 1 or 2, 3 votes that got, for some reason, rejected, or ballot papers that got spoiled. But the two numbers should be very close together, if not identical. So this report points out that in a very large number of constituencies, there is clear discrepancy between the Form 45 aggregate of the total number of votes polled and what the Form 46 for the same polling station is saying as regards the number of ballot papers used up at that polling station. Now this gives it all away. This tells you that the Form 45 was fraudulently manufactured, fabricated after polling had actually happened. So during polling, the presiding officer kept a record, kept a count of the number of ballot papers handed out, used at that polling station. That count is there in the Form 46. But when you look at the final rigged result contained in the Form 45, the two don't match. And this hasn't happened for 1 or 2 constituencies. This has happened for close to 100 constituencies. They move on to the next major mode of attack on the election. They note that in a very large number of constituencies, there are polling stations where the number of votes said to have been polled for the National Assembly is significantly higher than the number of votes polled at the same polling station for the Provincial Assembly. Now, you all know when you walk into a polling station, every voter is handed 2 ballot papers. Each polling station serves as a polling station both for the National Assembly and for the Regional Provincial Assembly. So every voter is handed two ballot papers, one for the National Assembly and one for the Provincial Assembly. And invariably, everywhere, the voter will cast both the votes. So when you look at polling stations in general, you discover, and they've noted this, that the number of votes polled at a particular polling station for the National Assembly is identical to the number of votes polled at that polling station for the Provincial Assembly. Now, what has happened in about 100 constituencies here is as follows: that within the constituency, in each constituency for the National Assembly, there are roughly 430, 440 polling stations. These are large constituencies. So in these constituencies, they've noticed that out of, let us say, the 436 polling stations, the number of votes polled for the National Assembly and the number of votes polled for the Provincial Assembly are identical at 300 polling stations. But then you have 136 polling stations where the number of votes polled for the National Assembly display a turnout at that polling station of 90% or above, 95%. But at the same polling station, the turnout for the Provincial Assembly is 39%, 38%. Now, this is absurd. So, for 300 polling stations in the same constituency, the turnout for the National Assembly and the turnout for the Provincial Assembly is identical. But for 136 polling stations, the turnout for the National Assembly is 95% and the turnout for the Provincial Assembly is 39%. That is the kind of discrepancy. You just need to look at these results and you can tell immediately that these 100 constituencies were attacked. Fake votes were recorded for the National Assembly, where the intent was to deprive the PTI of its overwhelming landslide two-thirds majority in the National Assembly. You see this ridiculous record. So the Commonwealth report has brought this out very well. And this is now there for anybody to go and verify with the record posted by the Election Commission at its website. This completely denudes this election of any legitimacy, any credibility. The government that has been created since then is a government without the mandate of the people. The parliament that has come into existence is a parliament that does not represent the will of the people. And the first law that this fraudulently elected parliament enacted was an amendment to the Election Act of 2017. And what was that amendment? On the 8th of February 2024, the Election Act 2017 said that after the election, all election disputes, like the ones that are now staring at us, would be decided by serving High Court judges acting as election tribunals. Now, the first law that this assembly created as a result of this rigging passes is to say that the election tribunals will consist not just of serving High Court judges, but also such retired judges as the Election Commission may in its discretion appoint. This is the amendment immediately made, and the clear intent was to obstruct the path to justice, to obstruct the expose or the exposition of the fraud that had taken place. And what the Election Commission then proceeded to do was it appointed persons who were PCO judges. Under General Musharraf's emergency in 2007, certain people were appointed judges and they were asked to take an oath under the then provisional constitutional order, which said that these judges would remain faithful to the person of Pervez Musharraf. Now, this provisional constitution order was subsequently declared void and a nullity by the Supreme Court of Pakistan, and these persons who had taken oath under the PCO to become judges were declared to never have been judges. The judgment of 2009 of the Supreme Court of Pakistan says that these persons who took oath under the PCO shall not be considered for any purpose whatsoever to have been judges of the High Court. They will not be allowed to use the word justice retired with their names because they took oath under an illegal instrument, again, under an instrument that constituted a subversion of the Constitution. So what the Election Commission has done is it has chosen those very people to become election tribunals. And since then, since 2024, a very large number of election petitions were filed by PTI candidates who had been defrauded. Those petitions have either not progressed, particularly in the province of Punjab, but also in Karachi, where the record shows PTI won 20 out of 21 National Assembly seats in Karachi. And this report points out that one of the seats taken away from the PTI and given to the Jamaat-e-Islami, Hafiz Naeemur Rahman, on that seat, Hafiz Naeemur Rahman conceded that this was a rigged election and he had in fact not won that election, and he refused to take oath for the National Assembly even though the Election Commission had declared him a returned candidate. So what the Commonwealth report is pointing out is that the fraud was so obvious and pervasive that nobody really could have gone along with it in good conscience. And people with the slightest level of good conscience, like Hafiz Naeem of the Jamaat-e-Islami, refused to accept this election, even though the rigged result was in his favor. So this has all come out in this report. Now, the question that arises with respect to this report and with respect to the conduct of the Commonwealth is the suppression of this report. We have now documents available, and this report testifies to the fact that it was completed, signed by each one of the 15 members of the election observation group set up by the Commonwealth on the 20th of November 2024. And it was handed over to the Commonwealth Secretariat. Why was this report not published there and then? Even the November date was a delayed date. Normally, Commonwealth election observation reports are created and published within 3 to 4 months. I'll give you some data. I'll give you data in a moment. So here, the election happened in February of 2024. The report was compiled in November, was completed in November of 2024. And they say they handed it over to the government. Why was this report only handed over to the fraudulently elected government? It is the responsibility, the duty of the Commonwealth to publish this report for all to examine. So they sat on this report and they're still sitting on this report. This has been leaked and they have now been forced to accept that this is indeed the report that the Commonwealth Election Group had prepared. So we raised that question, and I was noticing today in the UK press, this question has been raised. The Daily Telegraph today has run a story on this. This is a scandal in its own right. The Commonwealth sitting on a report that discloses such pervasive election rigging that completely denudes the authority, the legitimacy of Parliament and of government in Pakistan. And yet, despite this report having been completed, the Commonwealth has till now not officially released this report. So we ask why. Now, the data that I have been able to pull out somewhat quickly today, and since yesterday, reveals that there was an election report prepared by a Commonwealth observation group with respect to the elections in Trinidad and Tobago on the 28th of April 2025. That report was, the final report was published within 4 months. So the election took place on the 28th of April 2025. The report was published within 4 months. Similarly, there was a presidential election in Sri Lanka on the 21st of September 2024. That report was published within 2 months. Then there was a general election in Ghana on the 7th of December 2024. That report was published by the Commonwealth within 3 months. So the question then arises, why was this report treated in an unprecedented manner? This has never happened in the 70-year history of the Commonwealth, that an election observation group consisting of independent individuals of very high repute and standing should be allowed to gather dust for now nearly 2 years, in fact, more than 2 years. So this raises suspicion, this raises questions, and we hope the Commonwealth Institute will make amends, will review its conduct, and will come out and apologize to the Commonwealth, to the citizens of the entire Commonwealth, and to the citizens of Pakistan for sitting on this report that is of such vital importance. And we call upon the European Union, the EU, to also release the report that they have prepared. So there is a report prepared by the EU which has also been submitted to the government of Pakistan. Why are these reports being held from the people of Pakistan? We call upon the so called government of Pakistan to release these reports as well. This is the right of the people of Pakistan to know what happened, what was done to their mandate. Article 19A of the Constitution of Pakistan makes information a fundamental right of every Pakistani. This is vital information which is lying with the state of Pakistan, with the government, the so called government of Pakistan, and is being withheld from the people of Pakistan. So, this is where we are today. So, the PTI has consistently put its case to the people of Pakistan, and the people of Pakistan have all along known what their mandate was, who they voted for, and how that mandate was stolen. This was the most egregious assault on the electoral process in the history of Pakistan. And yet, the so called government carries on. And yet, it seems it has the support of international institutions like the Commonwealth that are playing an active part in suppressing reality and suppressing the truth. So, we ask all international observers who observed the election, in particular the Commonwealth and the EU, to not sit on these reports. We call upon the state of Pakistan, all authorities within the state of Pakistan, to confront reality, to confront the truth. Let the people of Pakistan know what the truth is. And this is a truth that they voted for. They know what the truth is. I see young people every day who come to me crying, people who are 20 years old, 21 years old, who had voted for the first time on the 8th of February 2024. And they come and say, why was my vote stolen? This is a disillusioned generation that you are creating. Young people who had participated in the democratic process with vigor, with zeal, and you've denied them their dreams. You've denied them their agency. You're saying to these young people of Pakistan and the not so young that they don't matter. Their voice does not matter. Their vote does not matter. This is a most serious assault on decency in Pakistan, on the relationship between the people of Pakistan and the state of Pakistan. You cannot run a fake government. You cannot run a government on the basis of a stolen mandate and keep a relationship with the people of Pakistan. And we're seeing the consequences of that, how the people of Pakistan have been left helpless in the wake of the recent floods. We've been all over Punjab, all over the affected areas of Sindh, and the state is absent. A heartless state, a state that has no real relationship with the people of Pakistan, has abandoned the people of Pakistan. So I place this report before you all, and through you, I place this report before the international community and the people of Pakistan.